Hi, this is Teddy, and you're listening to Dr. Eliz Markowitz on Two Broads Talking Politics.
Are you listening?
Hey everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast family of podcasts, and I am on today with Dr. Eliz Markowitz, who is running in a special election in Texas for the Texas House District 28. Hello, Dr. Eliz.
Hi, Kelly. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing quite well. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of elections going on right now, but you've got one of the few. So set the stage for us a little bit here. You had the sort of first round of the this election, and now it's going to a runoff.
Correct. Yes. So we were thrust into the special election when Dr. Zerwas resigned from his position as state representative. And our run for House District 28 went from a marathon into a sprint as we headed towards the special election. We ended up the first round with 39% of the vote, and now heading into January, early voting is January 21st through 24th, and then election day is January 28th. We're hoping to bring it home and set the stage for 2020. When we can flip this seat and 8 more to take control of the Texas House.
All right. That would be so exciting.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the Texas House.
Absolutely. So I am originally from Fort Bend. I was born and raised in Sugar Land, graduated from Katy Taylor High School, went and got my undergrad degree in computer science at Trinity in San Antonio. Thought I was going to go down the corporate path and went and got my master's in business. Ended up starting to work for the Princeton Review as a teacher and a trainer and an author. Really enjoyed teaching. Was all set up to continue down going through the corporate world when my mother unexpectedly passed away, which led me to move back to the district where my dad lives because I'm an only child and he's my best friend. And I wanted to be near him, and ended up going to the healthcare path because my mom had suffered from addiction for my entire life, and I wanted to try and help people like her from falling through the cracks of our healthcare system. And at that point, I was still teaching, and my students are falling around me and just failing. Not only my students in the Princeton Review classes I'm teaching, but my peers in my master's in health informatics program. And so I decided to get to the root cause of those problems. What is so problematic about our education system that we continue to fall in Texas falls in the national rankings and the U.S. falls in the world rankings for education. So I went and got my doctorate in education and then ran for the State Board of Education in 2018 for the midterms in a highly Republican gerrymandered district. We knew we weren't going to win, but we did move the needle from 33% to 41%. And when I was going around Southeast Texas, education was a huge issue, absolutely, but so was healthcare, so was school safety, so was climate change, so was the criminal justice system. The list just went on and on and on. And so when the midterms were over, came back home and decided to help fight for the community that raised me, essentially, and try to bring some honesty and integrity back to office.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about this district, House District 28, sort of where it's situated within Texas and sort of what it looks like.
Yeah, so it's to the west of Houston. So as Houston has been expanding, it's been growing outwards in urban sprawl. And so what's been happening is HD 28 is now the fastest growing House district in Texas. It's the most populated House district in Texas. And it's grown 14% faster than the state of Texas as a whole. And so this is a richly diverse community where it's no longer going to suffice to continue allowing the good old boy system to reign supreme. And so we actually need someone who can understand and work with the diverse communities of Fort Bend County and actually listen to their constituents to make a change and actually affect positive change throughout HD 28, Fort Bend County, and Texas as a whole.
So every time I've ever talked to anyone who's running for office in Texas, I hear the refrain that Texas isn't a red state so much as it's a non-voting state. Do you think that that's sort of the key to winning in this runoff in the special election is just really getting turnout up?
Yes. So every person who said that to you is absolutely right. We only had, I think, about 5% turnout for the midterms across the entire state of Texas. And so it's really hard to say, oh, yeah, Texas is a highly Republican state or Texas is a Democratic state because, to be honest, we just don't know because we don't get the folks to turn out to vote. So we know that this special election is going to be won by turnout. And so we are focusing our efforts on turning out our core Democrats that we've identified through various metrics and getting them to actually go to the polls. It's all well and good to knock on doors and do phone calls and send text messages and mailers. But at the end of the day, we have to convince them to go vote because we can't vote from our couches, unfortunately. And so getting people to the polls is going to be the key here.
And so it sounds like we really do have a chance in 2020 to flip the Texas legislature, or at least the House, which would be so amazing. So tell me what that would mean to Texas if you and a number of other people are able to flip seats and the Texas State House becomes blue.
So I think that things would change dramatically. First and foremost, when we win in January and we flip the first seat, the amount of resources that will flood into Texas to flip the remaining 8 seats we need to gain control of the Texas House will be great. It will be vast in number and in multitude. So we can imagine that the 17 targeted districts that were under 10 points in the midterms will be getting an intense amount of cash flow to help them flip those seats. And so if we set the stage in January and then going through to November, if we can then flip the other 8 seats, the most important thing that we'll be able to do is install an independent redistricting committee so that we can have fair maps in Texas to ensure that voters are choosing their politicians and politicians are not choosing their voters. Because for the last 10 years in Texas, we've had to deal with the gerrymandered maps from 2011. And so if we don't make a change now, we will be essentially stuck for another 10 to 20 years.
I know that the Houston area has been hit particularly hard by the effects of climate change. You are the daughter of an oil worker. So what are your views on climate and how the best ways are that we can really fix what's going on, and especially in the parts of Texas that have been hit so hard?
Yeah, so my dad does work in the oil industry. It's not anything that I hide, but that doesn't mean that I'm blind to the effects of climate change. Climate change is one of the most pressing issues that we are facing right now. Because to be perfectly honest, if we don't do something, we don't leave a world to inhabit for our children. And so we need to take immediate action to diminish the use of fossil fuels, invest in alternative energy, and ensure that we are taking care, installing environmental regulations to take care of the only world that we have. Because, again, if we don't, we will be in trouble. And there is no way back from a world that is broken.
What are the kinds of things that you think that the state legislature could do to really help reverse some of those effects?
So during the 86 legislature, there was 0 bills passed for environmental justice and environmental regulations. To me, that's absolutely ridiculous. When we have seen when we've seen 400 or 500 year floods in the past 5 years. And so in theory, we should say, we'll be set for 2,000 years, but we know that's not the case. We know that the next catastrophic flood is right around the corner. So instead of simply delaying the inevitable, we need to take proactive action. And whether that is limiting the use of fossil fuels, whether that is installing regulations so that we have to have higher emission standards, whether that is preventing fracking and drilling in certain parts of the state, that's what we need to do. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much profit the state of Texas gains for its economy if there is no one here to receive that profit.
So I know that one of the other really important things, as you mentioned to you, is education. I'm wondering if you could talk some about what you would like to see the state legislature doing in terms of education, how we could help ensure, how you in the state legislature could help ensure that Texas education standards go up.
So I truly believe that the core or the root of all of our issues is standardized testing, and in particular the STAR test. I spent the time that I was working on my doctorate studying standardized tests and doing analysis on how effective they are and whether they actually do work in an assessment environment. And the fact of the matter is that standardized tests have no bearing on the aptitude, ability, or achievement of a school teacher or institution. And they've also been proven to be invalid, unreliable metrics of any of the aforementioned. So here we are plunging hundreds of millions of dollars into simply the creation of the STAR test, let alone the lost learning time, the penalization that teachers face if they don't achieve a certain score, the funding that is linked to standardized testing, which is inevitably and inherently racist in its creation and distribution. And so we have this test that is essentially determining the educational outcomes for all students. So I've said publicly that the first piece of legislation that I would file would be to eliminate the STAR test from the curriculum. I think we also need to get back to teaching teachers how to teach instead of teaching to a test, which is also linked to our standardized testing. We need to stop linking school funding to standardized test scores because, again, these tests are created in the mindset of a high-class Caucasian individual taking these tests, and Texas is not that state. We are a diverse cornucopia of different ethnicities and nationalities, and so a single standardized test is not going to meet the needs of our students. We need to get back to teaching practical skills and knowledge that will prepare students to be productive members of the global society in which we live, because right now, students aren't prepared to enter either higher education or the workforce once they graduate high school. And so we're not doing ourselves any favors by underpreparing our students. And we see that there's this flight from Texas because, again, we can't get jobs once our students graduate. And so we end up bringing in a lot of labor to take that part, or take the place of our own homegrown students, and we shouldn't have to do that.
So I think in general what we're hearing from you and what is clear from looking at your platform on your website is that, you're running as a true Democrat, and that's something that people flipping seats seem to sometimes need to make a choice between, or maybe falsely feel like they need to make a choice between sort of appealing to the people who voted for Republicans versus sort of, inspiring the base. So I'm wondering sort of, I assume that you're sort of running as authentically you, but what you think about, is that inspiring people as you're going around talking to people in the district? How are they responding to your platform and your ideas?
I would say that people are responding very well. I was actually extremely surprised that during the special election filing period that everyone in Fort Bend and HD 28 was willing to coalesce around my campaign, and we didn't face multiple Democrats in the special election. And it seems as if everyone is united around an authentic candidate. I think that people are tired of the games, and they're tired of the inauthenticity of many politicians who are entering politics for power or because they want to make special connections with different vendors, so on and so forth. And truly, the only reason that I am running for this office is to help the people of my community and the people of Texas. I have no game plan aside from that, and that is the platform that I've been running on. And I think that that's something that resonates with people in the climate that we're in today, when we see that politicians in general are doing multiple backdoor deals and doing whatever it takes to further themselves rather than the people they represent.
So this is one of the few elections going on right now, as I mentioned. So tell our listeners how they can help out your campaign.
Well, that's a great question. We need all the help we can get. And if you go to www.eliz4tx.com, you'll see a volunteer page, which will soon be populated with multiple volunteer opportunities. So you'll be able to phone bank from anywhere in the country. If you're living in Texas near HD 28, we'll have multiple block walking days when you can come out and help. And of course, donations are always appreciated. We are up against a self-funding multimillionaire. And so we know that we aren't going to be able to meet the same standard that he's meeting, but every dollar would help. And so there's a donate page, and you can find us on our ActBlue site as well, Eliz for TX. And anything that y'all can do to help us flip this seat and then flip another 8 seats and then have control of the Texas House in 2020 and make some positive changes would be greatly appreciated.
And for those of us who live in very cold weather places, I assume it's a little nicer right now in Texas.
Little bit. Definitely don't have to shovel snow, that's for sure.
So everyone should head down to Texas.
There you go, right?
Over December and head down and help knock doors.
Give me a call. We'll open up the house. It'll be great.
So is there anything else that you would like to make sure that we talk about?
Just that this is an extremely important election in the sense that this is our shot to stop gerrymandering, essentially. And so, again, if we win this seat in January, there will be resources available for the other 16 districts that were under 10 points to flip another 8 seats so that we have a 9-seat game, so that we have control of the Texas House, so that we can have control of the redistricting committee, and so that we can install an independent redistricting committee and ensure that we have fair maps in Texas. Because right now that's not going on. We have racially biased maps that don't represent the constituency accurately. And if we truly want Texas to be a progressive player in the national arena, this is the opportunity to do so.
And we do.
Excellent.
And everyone should also remember that if we get more money and attention on those down ballot races, that will also help us up ballot in Texas in 2020.
Yes, very true. And wouldn't it be great if Texas voted blue for a president?
Yes.
That would be incredible. 38 electoral votes.
That would be a game changer.
Yes. And we can definitely do it because I'm not sure if you've heard, Kelly, but Texas isn't a red or a blue state, but it's a non-voting.
I've heard that once or twice.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and thank you for running. I'm so excited to see so many great candidates running for state legislative seats. People on this podcast have heard me talk about before how important these down ballot races are, so I hope everyone will go and support you. Got nothing else to focus your attention on here going into early January, so focus on this race. Let's get it across the finish line.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Kelly. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Wethlin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Two Broads Talk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.